welcome to the Beit Din, the Jewish People's Court. In this case before the Beit Din comes Ben Cohen, who has run his small delicatessen in the same location for over 25 years. Being an observant Jew, he has never opened on the Sabbath or other holidays. Very recently, a popular deli restaurant chain has opened just across the street from Mr. Cohen's place. This Jewish-owned establishment is very business-oriented and is kept open during the Sabbath as well as other holidays, threatening Mr. Cohen's livelihood. Mr. Cohen is therefore bringing Mr. Goldman, the owner of that restaurant, before the Beit Din, charging unfair competition. Sitting on the Beit Din in this case is Rabbi Mordecai Simon, Dayan, Rabbi Peter Noble of Beit Din, Rabbi Moses Meshaloff, Dayan, the case of the dueling delis.
Mr. Goldman, since our decision may have economic consequences, the court is interested in knowing whether you are prepared to abide by the decision of the court.
I wouldn't be here unless I was willing to abide. I'm very unhappy with the situation. My customers have driven me here because of Mr. Cohen. So I'm going to abide by it.
Mr. Cohen, could you describe the situation as you understand it, please?
Very recently, a new deli restaurant chain has come to move in across the way from me, and they don't observe the Sabbath. They stay open. Being a Jewish establishment and very business-minded, I can see that they might want to do this, but it's very intimidating and it's threatening my livelihood. And therefore, I've asked Mr. Goldman to come before this court, and I'm charging him with unfair competition.
If Mr. Goldman were to close his deli restaurant on...
Are you suggesting I close?
Wait.
You interrupted me, sir, and didn't allow me to finish my question.
I'm sorry.
If Mr. Goldman were to close his deli restaurant on Shabbat, would that solve the problem for you?
Yes.
Mr. Goldman, you own several restaurants.
That's true.
Can you tell us why you chose this particular location, and were you aware of Mr. Cohen's deli when you chose this location?
Yes. We studied the area. There's room for 2 delicatessens. We serve kosher style. We don't have the same kind of clientele that Mr. Cohen has. And we appeal to a large majority of the people that live in the neighborhood, not just the Jewish people that live in the neighborhood. I thought when we were coming in that there would be room for both of us, Mr. Cohen and his clientele, and Mr. Goldman and his clientele. I saw no difficulty in it because we appeal, we have a mixture of customers. So it's not just a matter of having kosher food or serving on the Sabbath.
Mr. Cohen, you have indicated that if Mr. Goldman and his establishment observe the same ground rules, namely closed on the Sabbath and holidays, that you would not protest. You couldn't protest because of the right of everyone to establish himself in whatever way he sees best. Is that correct? In other words, you will come out, hopefully, through the type of product you sell and the service you sell to maintain or to gain customers, and that will be his responsibility as well. So that's the only issue is the closing and opening hours, the amount of time that you are available to the public.
Yes, Rabbi, I would feel
Mr. Cohen,
satisfied.
is your delicatessen a kosher delicatessen?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
And tell me, do you draw customers only from the immediate vicinity, or do they come from any distances?
I draw customers from all over.
Has your community grown during these 25 years?
Yes, Rabbi.
And your clientele has grown?
Yes.
Mr. Goldberg, you say that you offer, Mr. Goldman, excuse me, you are serving both Jewish and non-Jewish clientele.
That's
yours is both a delicatessen and a restaurant?
That's correct, yes.
Mr. Cohen, yours is only a delicatessen?
That's correct.
Mr. Goldman, if you were to close on Shabbat, what would the effect be on your business?
We hire people on the basis of 7 days a week. The business is predicated on that. I have never considered it seriously. I don't know. I think we would fail. I think it would fold. I'd have to talk to my accountant. I don't know.
Mr.
No,
Goldman,
we're
and
talking
you,
about the Sabbath, we're talking about holidays, we would talk about 2 days on Rosh Hashanah. It could be a disaster. This
Now,
is a
but-
smaller business.
but Mr. Goldman, you have indicated you have other stores in your chain.
That's correct. That's correct.
Are they in competitive neighborhoods, Jewish neighborhoods, and I use that in quotation marks because you do not claim to serve kosher food? Do they appeal to a Jewish clientele? Or are they in other ethnic communities and neighborhoods, or you've never made a survey?
Well, Jewish is in now. Bagels, lox, cream cheese, things like that. So it has a broad appeal to cosmopolitan people. We're not in a Jewish neighborhood, particularly the other two locations. And there's no Abe Cohn in either of the other two locations.
So
Everyone else
that's
is
not an
open.
issue anywhere
No,
except here in this
just in this-
immediate
yes.
situation?
Yes.
In terms of what you said a moment ago, the financial pressure that you would feel were you closed in one particular day. Just as you surveyed the community, the neighborhood, the clientele before you moved in, have you made any effort to survey the consequences to your business should you be closed on this, not 1 day a week, but on this particular day of the week?
No, because I wouldn't, I couldn't understand that we would, that the Basin would do this. The business is there, we're supposed to be competitive. We only touch him in the deli department. The restaurant, which is the main part of our business, doesn't touch him at all. And as I say, his people will come to him for a kind of product they know. They come to us, it's kosher style. They can get other things besides the kosher meats there. So I didn't think it would make a difference, and I have not studied it, no.
Mr. Cohn, you claim that he has hurt your business. To what extent has he hurt your business, to the point where you are on the verge of bankruptcy, or is it just that your profits are not increasing as much as they used to increase?
Well, my profits are not increasing as much as I would expect them now that the neighborhood has increased as much as it has, and I feel that in time it will be very threatening to my total business because many people will be going to his restaurant and buying his products.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. The Bet-Din will now retire and come to a conclusion. Gentlemen, it seems to me that we have to decide whether, in fact, there is really unfair competition, whether the two of them are really in the same business or not. I think that we perhaps could argue that given the fact that Mr. Cohn's deli is in fact a real kosher deli, and the other one pretends to be kosher style, and that the deli is only incidental where the restaurant is the main business, that in fact there isn't serious competition. What do you think?
I would say that we're dealing with two different enterprises. So it's not a conflict of the principle of free enterprise obviously has to enter, but it is not unfair competition because one establishment, as it was explained to us, or as I interpret, was dealing with a particular type of commodity, particular type of service, and the other man was dealing with a different service and a different commodity. And I also thought I heard they were serving different clientele, that they would not be conflicting.
Well, the question to me is even more basic than that. Has Mr. Cohn a right to say this is what we call hasagat gvul? He's taking over my pad. Now, there are many laws about that. There's also law in Menachot about mahapech becharara, when a person comes in and takes away the livelihood from a poor person. He's been here for 25 years and he thinks his life will be ruined. But we're not talking about a person going into the private domain of another. He's in a community at large. And we don't have the right to tell a man you cannot do business in a city unless the entire city had made such a regulation. And As you state, unfortunately to me, one is kosher and one is not kosher. If they were both kosher, we would have a different problem.
I think there was a very caveat that we have to point out to Mr. Goldman, the use of kosher style, which happens to gnaw against me, and I think would be a violation. That term has to be very
Yes,
carefully
we better
used.
notify them that it's against state
Of
law.
ordinances that we have existing law.
Right. I think we also have to be sure that we praise Mr. Cohn for upholding Jewish law and being Shomer Shabbat, and at the same time, perhaps we can encourage Mr. Goldman to do the same. I think the direction is clear, however, that we do not find a case of unfair competition. Mr. Goldman, the Bet Din, in considering this case, first of all, would like to admonish you to cease referring to your restaurant as kosher style, because this may get you into problems with the law, which has very strict rules with respect to what may be called kosher and what may not be called kosher. However, in considering the case very carefully, we have decided that you and Mr. Cohn are practically in different businesses. The deli is incidental to your business, while the restaurant is in fact your main business, and that to declare you, to ask you to close on Shabbat would be to deprive you of your livelihood. On the other hand, we want to say to Mr. Cohn that we believe that your clientele is a very different clientele, which will continue to grow because of the integrity which you show by maintaining a strictly kosher establishment, by observing the Sabbath, and indicating that in fact your institution is one which is to be looked upon by Jews with great pride and with great favor. It is our sense that in this kind of a circumstance, we believe that you will continue to prosper and that in fact there is no unfair competition.
Gentlemen, I am amazed at the conclusion you reached. I thought you would make me do something I didn't want to do. And I am so overwhelmed that what I'm going to do, because as I listened to you both, I heard something that I didn't hear before, is I will close the deli on the Sabbath only, for a year, to see if that gives, if you pick up his business. For a year, I'll close the deli part and just have the restaurant open. And we'll see if that does it.
We have only one other request. That is, if it is possible to make your restaurant kosher too, then you'll be doing a double service to the Jewish community in which both of you live and do business.
We want to thank both of you and to indicate that we have great respect for both of you.
In this case before the Bet Din, the Jewish People's Court, Dr. Rona Gilbert, a practicing traditional Jew, is in the middle of her first year as a resident at her hospital. She is scheduled to work on Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, and has asked the chief resident, Dr. Michael Goldsmith, to change the schedule. He tells her that he cannot do this. He further states that 3 out of the other 4 residents on her shift are also Jewish, and that she has a commitment to her profession. Otherwise, if he granted all of their requests for a day off for the holiday, an emergency situation might well arise. Dr. Gilbert is therefore bringing her case before the Bet Din, stating that her religious rights are being violated. The rabbis serving on the Bet Din are Rabbi Peter Noble, Dayan, Rabbi Mordecai Simon of Bet Din, and Rabbi Moses Meshaloff, Dayan, the case of the High Holiday Dilemma.
Dr. Gilbert, you are petitioning our court for some sort of direction and redress, particularly to your senior, Dr. Goldsmith, in the hospital, to relieve or change the assignment that is focusing upon you to work on Yom Kippur. When did you note that you were scheduled to work on Yom Kippur?
Dr. Goldsmith put the new schedule up at the beginning of each month. At the time, I was not even aware that he had scheduled me for that day. When I did notice it, I spoke to him right away. At that time, he told me that I would not be able to have the day off I was already scheduled, and I would like you to help me make a decision on this. I feel it is my appropriate place to be at temple on this high holy day, and it is not necessary for me to be at the hospital.
Dr. Gilbert, you describe yourself as an observant Jew. You've gone through 4 years of medical school. You've been given assignments. You have responsibilities. What did you do until now in terms of any assignments that might have conflicted with observance of Shabbat? And I assume you are an observer of the Sabbath and other regulations.
Yes, I am. I have worked it out with him prior to this time. He knows that I like to observe the Shabbat and that I do not work, and the occasionally times where it has been necessary for me to be at the hospital and for me to be at temple at the same time, I've made a substitution. I've had no major problems up to now until this major holiday. This is still my first year of medical, and the first time I've had to experience this type of situation.
On your service, apparently the staff is overwhelmingly Jewish.
That's true.
In setting this up, and you realized that this was a problem that you were going to have, were there any suggestions from other Jewish members of the department, of the service, or is it the luck of the draw, so to speak, and Dr. Gilbert lost in this particular
Well,
case?
I'd like to respond to that. And running a hospital service and trying to set up schedules which are both fair to the doctor and to the patient is a very, very difficult task. And as I said before, we make every effort to accommodate people's religious observations, their family holidays, special events. However, it's taken a priori that the most important thing is continuity of care and hospital service. Now, I would argue that I have 3 other Jewish physicians on this same service, any one of whom would like to have Yom Kippur off. I cannot in all conscience say that Dr. Gilbert deserves this day off and they do not. Nor can I argue simply because she's an observant Jew, I am not that she deserves it more than someone else. I am not the judge of how observant any one doctor is or is not. I have no way of knowing what's going to occur. And quite frankly, I feel that Dr. Gilbert is being extremely obstinate in this. She realized when she took the position that there would be controversy, that there are times when things must be handled. She did not approach me when she first came on my service and say that that, in fact, was an issue in which she could not compromise.
Excuse me, Dr. Goldsmith, did any of the other Jewish physicians ask for that day off?
I had one other physician ask for that day off.
And what were you able to do in that situation?
I had to refuse.
So all of the Jewish physicians on your service are expected to work on Yom Kippur?
Staffing for that one day, unfortunately, as much as I tried, has to be the way the schedule was set.
Dr. Goldsmith, each one of these doctors is on duty to take care of all kinds of emergency, intensive care, the
Correct.
routine care. We cannot assign them to emergency only or something like that.
I wish it were possible, Rabbi, to have a triage system all throughout the hospital where one doctor would know that, in fact, he'd simply be putting Band-Aids on someone and someone else would be doing emergency room service. However, that's not always the case. Remember, it's not simply having an MD on the premises. One of the things I would argue is for the patient's well-being, it's important that the physician familiar with that patient and familiar with that service be present, that it provides a certain quality of care. Now, granted, that can't always be achieved, and I realize because of special events and religious holidays, there's going to be some disruption, but my duty as a physician to the hospital and to the patients is to try and maintain as high a quality of care as possible. Any disruption in the doctor's service, any disruption in the schedule is going to disrupt that continuity of care, so we try to keep it at a minimum.
Dr. Henderson, if I may ask, in many a hospital, there's a spirit of accommodation among the staff so that a Jewish doctor will substitute on Christmas and New Year's for the Christian doctor, and the Christian doctor reverts that by serving as staff doctor when the Jewish doctor cannot attend. Does that apply in your hospital too?
Well, I'm sure if it is at all possible, I'm sure that would occur. I mean, just as friends, we would each try to accommodate each other, but then in this case, it isn't possible, and I don't feel that I feel that the patients are more important